My first question to ask is
How important is communication?
an example of an I statement is
It's not going to happen. It's a process.
stay away from text messaging.
I often say like it should be a conversation, not a monologue.
It's getting to the meat of the issue and not trying to get everything solved at the same time.
James, tell me about yourself.
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Like I said, been practicing in the state of California, doing individual couples and family therapy since July of 2012. I've been practicing in the field for the last 30 years, working with individuals, families, and couples. And my focus is on helping people do what they do well and kind of de-emphasize what they don't do well in a relationship with another person.
And so what do you think when a couple comes to you, what's the first question you ask?
My first question to ask is if they're motivated for positive change and they're willing to take responsibility for their actions and they're willing to work in a new, unique manner with the individual or with the family that they're with so they can learn new, healthy communication habits and have a better, more sustaining and fulfilling relationship with the individual and family that they're related to.
And how do you think how important is communication when it comes to relationships?
Communication is very important because communication can be both verbal and nonverbal. Communication is how we as human beings understand each other. And a lot of times over months, years, people kind of get into a more of a self-centered, self-absorbed type of communication style. And they kind of get away from relationally understanding and empathizing with other people. So I like people to become more responsible and self-aware of their own communication style. I do a lot of modeling and teaching with couples and individuals on the use of I statements, which is responsibility statement versus a non-responsibility statement, which is more like a you statement. So an example of an I statement is, I feel happy when. A you statement is like, you made me mad, blaming the other person for making you feel.
Yes. And how do you think, have you seen any differences of how we communicate when it comes to men and women?
Well, people have to understand how they were brought up and socialized. A lot of people don't understand even the communication postures that are helpful. A lot of times people stand side to side and people, when they address each other, need to be standing face to face, normally within 18 inches of each other, and use a very kind, considerate tone of voice. And again, focusing on their wants, needs, and wishes. I like people to stay in the present time, which is kind of the here and now focus of the communication with the situation, staying on one topic at a time and kind of working towards an equitable and fair resolution to the particular issue or concern that is brought up between them.
What I've noticed is when couples have been together for a long time, there's a lot of history, right, behind them, and sometimes it's hard for couples or for one person more than the other to let go of all that past, past pain, past suffering, past experiences. And so how do you help them move through, to the here and the now?
Well, I like to help them, and I validate that there is concern, that there is feelings, and sometimes people are upset, angry, frustrated with what's been going on in the past, and people don't just develop unhealthy and unproductive coping skills over a short amount of time. Normally, it takes years to kind of creep in insidiously with unhealthy habits and behaviors. So I remind them and do a lot of staging and modeling with teaching them to kind of stop and take breaks. Very much scripted, a few minutes at a time, slowly bringing them along to what the new healthy style of communication is, taking responsibility, and then catching themselves and helping them slow down, utilizing coping skills when they start to get too caught up and too upset or angry, which is okay to feel, but not to take it out on the or blame the other person for
Right.
how they feel.
When emotions get heightened, right?
Right.
Because sometimes people think that, when it comes to expressing, sometimes it, what I've noticed with some of my couples, no, they'll say like, "No, I tell him or I tell her everything I want, and I tell her everything I think." And sometimes people think that that they have to say everything that's in their thoughts and everything that's in their minds, whether it's kind or unkind. They share that with their partner. What do you think about that?
Well, I try to get them to be very specifically focused on kind of segments of the topic and then kind of 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and not to get off on any kind of an abstract tangent of different things related to it or other things that come up. So a lot of times when somebody brings up an issue or concern, they want to bring up something else that hurt or bothered them instead of addressing what was going on with a particular situation at a particular time.
Yes, you bring up, maybe one partner will bring something and then the other partner will bring something else. And then now we're talking about, totally different issues start coming up, right?
Right. It's very, very common for people to want to go back to different times where they were wronged or invalidated or they felt kind of disrespected by the other person. So I focus on facilitation of staying in the here and now and the present and working through those issues and allowing them to know that later on at some point when they're ready, those other past issues will be addressed. But if you go more and more on sort of a circuitous tangent, you're not going to address the issues and learn to get better. So it's a slow building process of building a very strong communication foundation and then moving forward from there, like learning to clarify, which is like, what exactly do you mean? And then to summarize, what did you hear? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? A lot of times people want to make generalities. Well, we feel. No, you have to say I. So it's very complicated, and couples again have learned these habits over years of unhealthy, emotional, disjointed situations for themselves. So it's a lot of very, very positive modeling and building and growing the communication so it's healthy and productive.
Yes, because communication starts in early childhood. Right? It starts in the home. That's where we learn how to communicate and how to
Right.
express ourselves.
Normally, the family system that we come from, the educational system we participate in, and even before we're verbal as individuals, we're watching, listening, looking. So there's a lot of communication that people have that they have to realize that sometimes their words, they'll say no, but it could be no, no, and no.
Right.
So it's depending on the inflection of the voice
Yes.
and the facial expression.
Right. The intonation and
Exactly.
what you see.
Yes. So the idea is for people to be very clear on what they're thinking and what they mean and what they want. And there's a difference between wanting something and needing something. I use basics examples like, if you have a water and Diet Coke, which one do you need? You need to breathe. You need to go to the bathroom. You need to sleep, So people get those kind of things confused. And a lot of times when they want change, they want it immediately and they want everything to change. And they don't understand that it takes 30 to 36 days to change a
Right.
behavior with us. I mean, so many people have some difficulty with time change.
Yeah.
So they have to practice it. And when they're not seeing me, usually it's once a week for 8 to 12 sessions. And then sometimes it's spaced out to every other week and then every third week. But it takes about a year for couples to get on track and to change and be more productive and healthy communicators.
Yes, I agree because sometimes I have couples that maybe I'm the second therapist or the third therapist, and then they'll say, "I went to another therapist and I went, 2 times and nothing happened." And so I just laugh because I always tell them like, "Well, yeah, it's like going to the gym and you went to the gym twice and you did not get a six pack, right? It did not
Exactly.
happen." So it's not going to happen. It's a process, not a switch.
Right. I explain like the physical fitness and the change of diet and everything, where you're going to start with the 2-pound dumbbells. You're not going to start with the 60s.
Yes.
And there's a lot of homework that's involved too with people with like daily 5 to 10-minute check-ins, depending on the couple's ability to engage in healthy communication outside of the therapeutic setting. And I use the couples communication book. It's a book that's left in a neutral place, normally in the kitchen. or in the living room where each person can write thoughts, feelings, and ideas, shared calendars for the individuals, because a lot of families and individuals have people related to them, and it's always good to have shared ways for other people to communicate and understand each other.
Yes, and different ways of communicating, right? Like you said, like a calendar, that's a form of communication, or having check-ins, right? Talking.
Right. Well, talking in face to face is very important because unfortunately the printed word can convey the information, but it doesn't give you the kind of the thinking and the feeling behind it and the thoughts. Like you read a test message, and we've all gotten these kind of messages.
Yes.
We have to talk, and most people, when they see that, they get anxious and scared and whatever. Even under the most positive situations, people worry. But I always tell people to have time to see and hear the other person, to talk on the phone, and to stay away from text messaging. I think that desensitizes a lot of times to emotional kind of warmth and contact.
Yes, and yeah, like especially nowadays, right? When we're glued to phones and
Right.
texting, and have you found that there's like resistance to letting go of the texting or
I find, unfortunately, a lot of resistance. People really enjoy their technologies. And a lot of times I set parameters for quality time together, which normally means even in situations where people are professionals and they have to be accountable, say doctors or lawyers or other people where they have to be on call. I say for those 10 minutes with the other person, everything else is put away and put to the side. And so many people have such a hard time to do that because they're glancing at their phone, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. Unfortunately, increase in technology has made us kind of um, less, you know, effective communicators with understanding and locking into the other person. Screen time is people, almost second nature for people to get up in the morning or before they go to bed or whatever, or even when they're with other people, is to kind of get distracted by social media or just abstract videos on the phone.
yeah. And yeah, it's true. It's we're in such fast-paced, right? Fast-paced society that everything has shortened, right? Even words have become initials now, right? Like so typing by the way is BTW. So
Yeah,
yeah, we become less, less attuned to emotions and
less attuned to emotions and actually well thought out thoughts and feelings, and letting the other person know. And that's why you look at "you're welcome" or LOL or whatever. That kind of stifles people's um, emotional creativity to be there and present for the other person, and they wonder why they're having such a difficulty relating to somebody when most of the time they're focused on very short, abbreviated, non-emotional communication, and then they get very upset when things don't come easily and quickly for them, like a message or an email or something like that.
yes. And James, I've also, when it comes to, generalities or stereotypes, I've noticed that we women sometimes when we communicate, we want to talk and solve the problem right there, or solve whatever is this, is creating distress in us or making us anxious, or creating a intense emotion in us. Like we want to talk about it in that very moment, whereas usually men tend to like shut down. What has been your experience?
Well, unfortunately, women still have the advantage regarding emotionality and feelings expression positively. Men are catching up, but it's still a challenge. When I have people say two people who want to talk about things, and if it is a man and a woman, I basically tell people that they sort of have to get to the point. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Stating it very clearly and succinctly, and then allowing the other person to respond to the information presented. And when the other person is going off on a very long discourse of how they feel, is to kind of bring them to the center point. Like it's okay to saying what you're feeling, just say what you're thinking as well.
Yeah.
And it keeps people from getting less frustrated with each other.
Yes, and I often say, like, it should be a conversation, not a monologue, right? So
Exactly,
if you're
right.
talking and talking and the other person's just spacing out, then you gotta pause.
Well, it's good to allow the people to talk, but then you remind them as you're going along, and even sometimes stopping the therapy session, to remind the person to make eye contact, to look up, to swallow, to breathe. So they're continuing again the positive dialogue between the other person, and one person's not dominating or taking over, and that may be the communication style they've established at home. And this way, I try to make a very even discourse of each person getting equal time.
Yes. And so, when it comes to communicating, what do you think what becomes, barriers for couples? What are why can't they just communicate and talk to each other?
Well, the thing is that it's getting to the meat of the issue, and not trying to get everything solved at the same time, and focusing on one particular topic, saying how you feel and think about it, and talking about not only about the problem, but a possible solution as well as the issue or concern, and how we can make it better. And for people to let go of the feelings of anger and hurt and resentment, and not keep bringing that back to the issue, because people like to feel validated, respected, understood, heard. And a lot of times people feel you're not feeling me, you're not understanding me. And the thing is, they are there now, but people want to kind of beat the other person up for past emotional transgressions of not being understood, not being heard, not being validated. So a lot of times people, when they have an open forum with the other person, they're saying, okay, now I'm going to get mine. And I'm saying it's not about that. It's about starting new and moving forward. So that's a really big challenge for a lot of people is to work on moving forward.
Yeah, the here and the now,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Like you said at the beginning, and how, yeah, I tell the couples I work with the same thing. Like, you're starting a new relationship, right? We're starting a new relationship with the same person.
Well, again, we're going back to kind of what brought you together. We're talking about what used to work, and so we can do more of that and less of what doesn't work. A lot of times people have to make changes in their lives to make the relationship and the family and the situation a priority. A lot of people are overscheduled from the time they get up to the time they go to sleep, and they have to take time. Most average professional people don't take 15 to 20 minutes to have a meal. And it's very good. And they're working during lunch, or they're working during breakfast, or they're driving and eating and doing other thing, and making phone calls, sometimes sending voice text messages, which you shouldn't do while driving.
Right.
But, people need to learn the importance of the relationships and the positive, healthy communication with the other person, because they want to get so much done, and they're less initially focused on the quality versus just getting it out there. And most people don't want someone to just give them a very flat, pat answer. They want to feel emotionally connected. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like the other person really, is there for them. And
Yes.
people forget that over time.
Yes, with work and kids and everything in between, right? Sports, people forget.
People get overly concerned with their busy lives and the details, and a lot of times they forget about the people in their lives, and they don't realize that relationships take time to cultivate and nurture, almost like little seedling plants that you have to keep going back and keep putting the work and the time in. And if you don't, you're not going to have the healthy relationships. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to keep something of value unless you put into it, nurture, and grow it.
Yes. Even like fun communication, right? They forget to talk about, what do they want to do for fun? Or,
Well,
they
usually,
forget.
again, you have to plan that in your relationship. With people that are in partnerships, I say, date nights are important. An hour of quality time a week is important with just the other person there. Sitting down watching TV or looking at videos or listening to music, and it's not necessarily quality time. It's them interacting and doing something with the other person, and allowing them to have a discourse of understanding of thoughts and feelings. and just getting back to getting their needs met, connecting. Some people, unfortunately, over time lose intimacy connection, and I'm not talking about just sexual intimacy. I'm talking about holding hands, touching, hugging, kissing, just having close time with the other person. A lot of times, when a couple comes in and they've been together for 20 years, I'll ask them where they sit at different times or how close they are. And a lot of times, one person's across the room, the other person's there. There's not only emotional and distance
Disconnect.
inside them, but it's also the physical disconnect. They've already started moving away from each other. Sometimes they're not even in the same bedroom anymore. So I look at what's going on there. What are we doing to bring you closer? And you do it slowly and gradually. So it's not abrupt and it's not too difficult.
Yes. And so, what do you do with with the couples that are like very intense, the ones that come to your therapy
Well, the couples that are very
session?
intense, normally setting very, very firm before the session is going, is to set very clear boundaries and guidelines and agendas of what's going to be talked about, what's not going to be talked about. And literally, with new couples, that there's a lot of intensity. I'll sit between them and I'll have them speak to me rather than speak to each other, because all of a sudden they're going and acting like they were if they were not in that therapeutic setting, and they start to act out. And sometimes I'll ask them to show me what it's like for them so I can actually see and hear. And then we sort of model and shape and change. And sometimes I do role play, and I'll assume the role of one or the other partner to help them see how they are and then how to do it differently and how to change it. And some people require months of slow, nurturing, gentle re-education for communication and feelings expression.
So you model how
Modeling use of I statements,
okay.
staying present, addressing the person in a respectful manner, usually not using foul or cussive or hurtful language. A lot of times people kind of, when they are in certain roles, assume certain ways of doing it, certain dynamics, even body posturing, distance, hands, feet. It just, because sometimes people, if they can have a power advantage in a situation, sometimes they don't even recognize when they're doing it.
Yeah.
So to try to keep it fair and even and remind people of how to speak and engage one another.
Yes, because sometimes couples have lost their filter, right? And they maybe, yeah, like you said, they use.
Well, they've lost their
Yeah.
ability to be kind and considerate to the other person, and they automatically go sometimes from something where they were feeling hurt or invalidated, and they start there instead of starting in the present. So they're already talking about what they were angry or frustrated the day before. And, they assume that the other person knew exactly what triggered the situation. You know why you made me mad. And a lot of the other person is, I have no idea, but they've been kind of focused and ruminating on that particular issue for a long time. And first chance they get, they ambush the other person. So you try to get them to say what they're thinking and feeling and how to get it to be understood rather than just to put the hurt and the blame on the other person.
Yes. And why do you think that we sometimes, meaning, when we ambush uh, a partner, why do you think that happens?
Well, people want to be heard and they want to be respected and they want to be validated. And a lot of times is when there's an opening to do so, sometimes they feel like they don't get a chance to say their piece and their narrative. So when they have the first opportunity, sometimes they jump in and use less than helpful language and body expression to nonverbal communication to get their thoughts and feelings across. And then basically you have the people just going back and exchanging the hurt and the feelings of frustration rather than the solution and ways to move forward and have healthier, productive situations with themselves.
Yeah, they fall in this like negative cycle, right? That's hard to break.
Right, because then they see the other person, stopping the communication and walking away rarely resolves the situation. That just saves it for later, and then you don't resolve anything, and you continue the difficulty, And then you start letting the other person know how hurt or angry you are instead of resolving it. You try to get most people to kind of accept the situation that is between them and then come to some kind of reasonable compromise. Even if it's not 100% of what you want, it's what the individuals want to figure is fair. And that does a lot for people because this way you're not getting all of what you want, but you're getting something and you're understanding the reasoning behind the other person's requests and desires for things.
Yes. And what would you say for couples that want to improve their, the way that they communicate? I know you said practicing I statements.
Practicing I statements, clarifying their wants and needs very clearly, summarizing what they heard from the other person, and practicing it on a daily basis. Practicing healthy communication skills, taking the time to have the conversations, not as they're getting ready for work in the morning and one person is shaving, the other person is eating breakfast and
Right.
hurting the kids and whatever. So normally face to face time and keeping to their thoughts and feelings and the agenda at hand and to make sure that they're understood. And then if it needs to be continued another time, it's when. It's not later is never good. Later, has to be okay. Does that mean tomorrow, the next day, whatever? Normally, when and where is it going to be resumed is
Yes.
also very helpful.
Yes, I always tell. Yes, I always say if you're the one asking for space or timeout, then you have to be the one to say, we're going to continue this."
And that's
Eh,
something that's agreed on in situations in healthy relationships. People can say, look, when it gets difficult, because nobody's the same
Yes.
and different people have different levels of tolerance and frustration. So if they know ahead of time when somebody says, I can't continue this, I need a few minutes, or I need to bring it up later, a lot of times people think the other person kind of wants to get away or is trying to avoid when they have a limited bandwidth to understand or to continue the conversation. So people have to understand other people's limits and abilities, which is very, very important, which again, I tell people, and all of a sudden it's new information when sometimes their partners have been saying the same thing over and over and over for years.
Yes. Well, is there anything else you think peop people or individuals, couples should know about communication?
That it's a process and it's a practice thing, and it's something that it does take work. I really am challenged when people tell me, "Oh, I Googled that," or "I learned this," or they make generalities of, so and so selfish. They must be a narcissist. And
Right.
when I explained the definition of narcissism, or I'll get one of the publications out, they'd be like, "Oh, I had no idea it was that difficult and that involved." Or when somebody's moody, "Oh, they must be
You're
bipolar."
bipolar.
No,
Yeah.
you know, uh, that's just an expression of someone that has issues or challenges with mood. It doesn't mean that they've actually have the true bipolar.
Yes. Or sometimes if they're expressing their emotions, right? Or gaslighting. It's gaslighting. No, that's
Right, exactly. People like simple, easy terminologies and verbiage to put into to explain things. And I tell people a lot of times, just because you have general information about something doesn't mean you have all the story. And sometimes you have to continue to focus and understand things and go over things and explain your story and where you're from so the other person can understand and then move on with you, not kind of just take the information and then store it away somewhere.
yeah. And well, are you when you have a couple and or individuals, what do you think? So I statements, uh coping skills I think are also important, right? Being able to work on your emotions so that you can communicate,
Right.
right? What you
Coping skills
want.
that I use are very, very basic for people. I don't give them anything too complicated. And I normally model and have them do it with me a few times and until they get some sense of mastery so they can take it home. I like box breathing, which is breathing in through your nose to a slow count of four. You think it and then you hold it for four and then you let it out. Like breathe in, one, two, three, four, hold it for four, and then let it out through your mouth for four. Taking time outs, taking time to mindfully think about the situation. What was my part? What was their part? Now that I'm allowed to be calm in my mind, how do I resolve this? What would be fair? Because most of us understand from a very early age what's equitable and fair in a situation, but a lot of people don't want to be fair, and people like to be right.
Yes.
The older we get in as adults, people have less acceptance of kind of to give up their power.
Yeah, it becomes like you're in court. Who's right? Who's wrong?
Exactly.
It's not court.
Basically, for therapy and relationships to work better, it has to be what's fair and what helps.
Yeah, and what helps your partner, right? Too.
Right.
Being mindful of what's helping you, and
Of
also what
course.
helps your partner.
Right. And that's hard sometimes, because sometimes people have been in situations for such a prolonged period of time that they forget, that they're there for fairness, that they're there for the other person's well-being as well as their own.
Well, thank you, James, for all your wisdom. And I'm really excited to have you today in this our first episode of Sessions and Secrets. And I look forward to doing more episodes with you.
Thank you, Luisa. I appreciate your time.
Shh. Subscribe.